One of the powerful ways that we can utilize labels in output reports is the ability to create custom label filters that allow us to filter down the outputs to show up for a specific purpose that we're searching for. In this example, we're going to look at a shot chart using league exchange data from these three games. And then we're also going to add in our own custom labels for two specific areas so that we can filter by those areas. Within these league exchange games, we're going to utilize labels that are already included based on the location of each shot, which we have in this group location zone, and the result of these shots in the label group shots within the row Otago basketball shots. In addition, we've gone through utilizing this code window to label period, both quarter and half, and then two basic examples of a play type in transition and half court. Once we've built out this entire example, it'll look something like this shot chart here, where we have a button for each zone, one that's going to show us our field goal makes and field goal attempts, and the other that's going to show us our percentage. And then down here we have two inactive buttons that are going to represent our filters, so that if we go into report mode here, we can see our overall shot chart, and now we can drill it down to if we want to see first half and maybe first half transition shots for a combination. All of these are showing an output for number and are connected to video. Now, how did we get to this step? Let's backtrack a little to this window. We've already created our buttons for each zone, and now we have our two inactive buttons that we need to set up as our filters. To do so, we're going to go into the inspector of these inactive buttons, and the first thing we need to do is go in and set a button ID that we can reference to search for the filters we'd like. So in this case, we're going to do period for this filter and play type for this filter. Now I can go into alternate names, which is going to allow me to create a drop-down list so that we can search for those specific labels. Now the first one we're going to do is actually a blank. And the reason for the blank is essentially to operate as the all search for this example. So if I wanted to search for any of these periods, I would switch it back to blank so that it'll only search for any clip that includes any of the labels for the label group period. Now that we have that example, I can go in and do our actual labels exactly as I have them in our code window. Now that we have period, we can do the same for play type. Now that's all we have to do for our filters. Now let's get into the scripting. We're going to go first to our left corner 3 here, and we're going to create our first variable, which is going to reference the location of these shots, which, if you remember from our matrix, was in a group location zone, and then the label for this zone is baseline 3 left. The second variable we need to create needs to reference the name of each of our filter drop-down buttons. So in this case, we're going to do period, and we're just going to use the command button name and then reference that button ID of period. And now we can do the same for play type. Now that we have those set up, we can reference the statistics that we're searching for. So in this case, we're looking for our 3-point makes and 3-point misses. So we'll create a variable for stat1, which is going to look for +3. And in this case, we're actually going to indicate the row we're searching for. So we're doing where row equals Otago basketball shots. Then we can copy this line and do the same for misses. Change it to stat2, and now -3 for misses. Now that we've brought in all of the labels that we have above, we can create our filters to bring these all together. We're going to do so by creating a filter for each of our 3-point make and 3-point misses separately. So we'll do filter 1, and then we'll bring in each variable we have above. Then we're going to utilize the AND function. So in this case, we have location AND. But before we do period and play type, we do need to do one small difference for these two to utilize that blank option we have. And to do so, we have to actually reference the label group for those labels so that when we do set it to blank, it'll essentially search for all shots that include any of the labels that we have in the group period and in the group play type. So I'll do so here with period, and then I'll reference the name of that button in this variable, and then do the same for play type. And then lastly, bring in our stat1 for 3-point makes. Once we have that, I can do the second filter. And now we've changed it to stat2 for 3-point misses. Once we have that, we've now brought in the video that matches all of these cases for each filter. But now we actually have to count the number of clips in this case. And so we're going to create a field goal make variable, which counts filter 1, and then a field goal attempt variable, which counts filter 1 in addition to the count of filter 2 to include our misses. Lastly, we can create our show of our output and the show of our video. So for our output, we're going to do show, bring in the field goal make count, and then we're going to use our text commands to bring in a slash to make it look like field goal attempts, field goal makes over field goal attempts with those two variables. And then lastly, we can include our video, which is going to be referencing these filters here, since it hasn't been counted and it hasn't been turned into a number yet. And so I can do filter 1 and then use the OR command with filter 2. Once we've created all of that, now we can copy this into our percentage button and make one small change to create the percentage output. All we'd have to do is now create one additional variable that actually does the math. And so in this case, we're going to create a calc variable. And we're going to take field goal make divided by field goal attempt and times it by 100. Now that we've done that, we're going to include one more command using the round function, where we're going to show the round of that variable, calc, to 0 decimal places. And then we're going to use our text commands again to add in the percentage. Once we've set this up, now we can do the same for our 2-point make button to the right here. And all we need to change is the location and our stats. Now that we have that all set up, and we've already gone ahead and did it for the rest of these buttons, we can check our output. We're going to switch it to our folder that includes our games. And now we can see we have an output overall, and we can go in and use our rename functions to look at any example we'd like, such as first half transition, which then we can go in and see the video for such.